The main goals of standardized tests are to evaluate a student's performance and compare his or her scores with other students locally and across the state. However, the scores do not define a student's capability. Do standardized tests accurately measure intelligence? Should these tests be the key factor in getting accepted or receiving a scholarship to universities? Although I maintained a 4.0 GPA while in high school and was valedictorian of my graduating class, I was denied several scholarships, as well as an acceptance to a university because of my score on a standardized test. Most every student has or will take some sort of standardized test. Even if you score low, that does not necessarily discredit your potential. I would like to share with you several valid arguments as to why standardized tests do not accurately measure intelligence. Throughout my speech, we will discuss 3 factors of standardized testing: the fact that they are timed, multiple choice, and are on one specific day. First, let's look at the effects on students when taking timed tests. Standardized tests are usually timed. This can be very stressful for some students. Some students need time to critically think about questions. A student may know the answer to a question and fail to answer it correctly simply because he/she does not have enough time. As stated by Armstrong, his 8th reason as to why standardized tests are worthless is because standardized tests occur in an artificial learning environment. They're timed. You can't talk to a fellow student. You can't ask questions. You can't use references or learning devices. You can't get up and move around. How often does the real world look like this? Prisons come to mind. And yet, even the most hard-headed conservative will say that education must prepare students for the real world. Clearly, standardized testing doesn't do this. A timed standardized test puts more pressure on students when they know they need a good score to get a scholarship to college. Most colleges use standardized tests to determine if one is academically ready for college work. It is unfair for students who work hard in the classroom to be turned down for a college scholarship simply because of their ACT or SAT scores. According to Simon, the SAT, the admissions exam used by 80% of American colleges, addresses only a student's cognitive abilities or academic aptitude. It does not tell the whole story. Students can have a high GPA and be very active in extracurricular activities and still receive a low test score. The test score does not define who the students are or what they are capable of. This is a copy of my highest ACT score, and this is my proof that standardized tests do not accurately measure intelligence. If standardized tests were not multiple choice, several students who received a high score might not make the same score if they took the test again. Multiple choice standardized tests do not measure a student's knowledge. Doherty claims, to prepare our students for success in the next century, we must move toward an assessment system in which students can demonstrate their skills in a real-world context by applying their knowledge to actual situations rather than by using standardized multiple-choice tests, which measure memorization instead of complex thinking and problem solving. For example, if a student takes a multiple choice test and does not know the answer, the student will have either a 20 or 25% chance of getting the answer correct. However, if another student takes the same test without it being multiple choice, the student will have to guess if he or she does not know the answer. This is unfair to the student who did not have the 4 or 5 answer choices to choose from. Also, it is unfair for students to be able to guess on standardized tests and possibly get the answer correct. Let's consider the designated day on which students take a standardized test. Standardized testing only evaluates one-time performance instead of a student's progress and proficiency over time. Many would argue the teacher and student performance should be evaluated on growth over the course of the year instead of one single test, according to Meter. Brady points out there's only one thought process that standardized machine-gradable tests can measure with absolute precision: student recall of secondhand information, period. That's useful, of course, but it has little to do with how well students think. There are many factors to consider on test day. For example, some standardized tests, such as the ACT, are taken on a Saturday morning and can last around 4 hours. The room might also be too hot or too cold for students to concentrate. Since one has to sign up for the ACT and SAT weeks in advance, one may not know what could happen a few days prior to test day. A school trip could get planned, or a ball game could go into overtime the night before. Students may not get as much rest as they need in order to complete the standardized test. Also, one may not be feeling well, or one may have gotten into an argument with someone the night before. There are several factors as to why standardized tests do not measure a student's intelligence. When tests are timed, this can stress students out and put a lot of pressure on them. If the test is multiple choice, a student could have no idea what the correct answer is, but guess and get it right. With standardized tests, one has to plan weeks in advance to take it. A student does not know ahead of time what could be happening prior to that day. A high ACT or SAT score could provide a student with a full paid scholarship. However, this should not be the only way to determine one's readiness for college. Do these tests predict the student's success in the classroom? I'm a perfect example of why they do not. While in high school, I took the ACT several times, and my highest composite score was 21. I proved that I could maintain a 4.0 GPA while being involved in numerous clubs, cheerleading, and also competitive cheer. I took dual enrollment classes as well as graduated valedictorian of my senior class. I was overlooked for several scholarship opportunities and denied acceptance into a university I applied for. Thankfully, I received an academic scholarship to Northeast. My current GPA is 4.0, and I have been accepted into McWhorter School of Pharmacy at Stanford University and will begin classes in the fall. My point is that my ACT score did not define my ability to succeed in college. Therefore, standardized tests do not measure intelligence.